There have been a number of conversations over the years which have always questioned the user experience offered by various Linux distributions when compared to that of, let's say, Microsoft Windows. Well, in this episode, we're going to test some of those assumptions and put many of them to rest by comparing the latest release of Zorin OS to Windows 11. Let's get to it. Now, it's my hope that this episode will stimulate, some really constructive and friendly conversations such that if you run into any of these mistaken assumptions from others, either online or in person, just have them come check out this episode. Now, both Windows and Zorin OS, have their pluses and minuses, as does every operating system. Now, today, however, we're going to cover a few key areas of usability between these two. And what I'm going to do is really focus on some recent conversations that I've had with coworkers who just couldn't understand how it is that I have the patience to try to figure out how to use the Linux desktop. Because from their perspective, Linux is this complex mystery that's really only for scientific and engineering use. Now, while Linux is indeed a great solution for both of those use cases, as many of you already know, it handles a plethora of other use cases quite well. Now, here's the kicker. The folks that I've spoken with have never actually tried Linux, and yet they base their opinions on what they've heard and seen online. Now, the sad part about it is the fact that you'll find that this is not an entirely uncommon viewpoint. So let's put some of these mistaken assumptions to rest. So for this episode, I'm going to touch on the top 5 mistaken assumptions that I've heard time and time again. Number 1, installing Linux is too difficult. Number 2, now this one drives me nuts. Don't you have to compile all of your software before you can use it? Number 3, Linux only works on certain types of computers. Now this one puzzles me. Number 4, there's no support for Linux and the open source software that runs on it. And number 5, Linux cannot run all of my Windows programs. Now, if you've watched previous episodes of mine, you'll know that I'm a huge Cinnamon desktop fan. In fact, I run the Linux Mint Debian edition, which uses the Cinnamon desktop each and every day. In fact, even my Fedora PC runs the Cinnamon desktop. So again, huge Cinnamon fan. So I could have just as easily used, the Cinnamon desktop in this particular episode, but I decided to go with Zorin for a couple of reasons. First off, because Zorin is my third favorite Linux distribution, and next to Linux Mint and Fedora, and because, to me at least, Zorin is a nice blend of the GNOME desktop and the Cinnamon desktop. And while beauty is certainly in the eye of the beholder, I find that the Windows 11 user interface is very similar to what you see here with the Zorin default user interface. So we're going to move forward with Zorin OS. Okay, so let's start at the top. Linux is too difficult to install. I would argue that most, if not all of the people who make this statement have never installed an operating system before in their life. And that includes Windows. All they've ever done is buy a new computer with either Mac OS or Windows already installed. And what's really sad about this is that in so many of these situations, the motivation to buy a new computer is because really the old one has gotten to be just too slow. Not that it no longer mechanically functions, but because it's just gotten to be too slow. Now keep in mind that in many of those cases, it isn't because the end user is really doing anything all that different today when compared to what they used their computer for when they originally purchased it in the first place. You know, anyone who has installed something like Ubuntu or Zorin or any other Linux distribution for that matter knows that the installation process isn't rocket science. I mean, look here. You can find any number of websites, including YouTube videos, on how to install Linux. In fact, here's the Zorin's website. It's a step-by-step guide on what you need to do to install Linux, and it gives you to install Zorin, and it gives you some really good screenshots. I did a quick YouTube search, and here are a number of different videos that walk you through installing Zorin OS. Now, in fact, I even posted an episode back in September of 2021 where I actually walked you through installing Linux for the first time. Let's go to the website right quick here. My website is For the Tech of It. If I go to videos, see if I can find that one. It's been a while. Okay, got Fedora, Ubuntu, cord cutting, installing Linux. Here we go. Installing Linux for the first time. And I walk you through step by step installing Linux on my laptop. So it's not a difficult task, folks. You know, I mean, doing practically anything is going to be difficult if you're unwilling to learn how to do it. I've installed Windows, Mac OS, and Linux countless times, and I've found that the process for installing Windows is even more involved and time-consuming than either Mac OS or Linux. Okay, mistaken assumption number 2. Oh my gosh, this one just drives me nuts. Don't you have to compile all of your software before you can use it with Linux? All right, I'm going to start out here in Windows 11. Let's take a look at something right quick. I'm going to go into the Microsoft Store. I'm going to open that up. Now, a little bit about the Microsoft Store. This thing was a hot mess when it originally appeared back, I think, during the Windows 8 days. And admittedly, while it has gotten a bit better over the years, it still leaves something to be desired, in my opinion. But installing software on it is really simple. Let's say we want to go to gaming, and I don't know, Roblox. Simple as clicking on it. You can read a little bit about it, see screenshots, what have you. Click the Get button, and Windows will go download and install the software for you. Simple enough, right? Let's go take a look at Zorin OS. We're going to go to its Software Center. Now, admittedly, it's not quite as punchy, beautiful, and animated. There is some animations, but as the Windows Microsoft Store. But nonetheless, you see what you're getting here, right? You've got editors picks, recent releases, recommended games, recommended audio and video applications, and then you have different categories. So let's say we wanted to, I don't know, pick a game or something. We'll go to More. It'll start loading up the list of additional software. Oh, here's Warble. This is a good one. We'll click on Warble. Nice little screenshot. You can go between those, figure out the word before your guess runs out. We'll click Install. It asks us to put our password. We'll do that now. And it'll start installing. Let's go back to Windows while that's running. Another good thing about the Microsoft Store, if you click on Library here, it will show you which applications have updates available. Really convenient. You can click Update All, or you can click on those individually that you want to update. So that's a real nice feature. Let's go back in here and look at Zorin. So Zorin's about done. installing Warble. We'll go back to the main screen. It's loaded up the other games that I was looking for. Still installing. If we click on Updates, let's see if Zorin has any updates that need to be applied. Now, this may take a moment because it has to check and see what updates are available. Plus, it's still doing an install right here, finishing up Warble. But once it finishes checking, if there are any applications or system updates that need to be applied, you'll see that list here. But here's the application, the software center for Zorin. Click on it. It has to search its library. It's going to download those and it's going to start filling these in, just like it did here. And you can click on any of these and just click Install. It'll ask you for a password and it starts doing the install for you. No need to compile anything. Everything is there for you. Let's see if there are any updates. Yep, it found 2 updates. So these are application updates. You can either update them individually, just like with Windows. If we go back right quick to Windows, you can update them individually or update all. Same here with Zorin. You can update all. So there you have it. Installing software on Linux does not require you to have a computer science degree. So no, you don't have to compile your software just to use it with Linux. This isn't 1996 anymore, folks. Okay, so number 3, Linux only works on certain types of computers. Well, I guess they got one right. Let's take a look at what types of computers Linux actually runs on. All right, so let's go through the list right quick. What types of computers run Linux? Web servers, database servers, file servers, supercomputers and mainframes, email servers, pretty much any other type of shared server, laptops and desktops, most new ones and old ones. Now, I placed some emphasis on most new ones because it's important to call out the fact that sometimes newer computers that enter the market primarily target Windows. It takes the Linux community a bit of time to make and test the necessary driver updates to the Linux kernel to support that new hardware. Now, while Linux does have extensive hardware support, it's not 100% guaranteed to work on every single variation of laptop and desktop right away. Now, something else to make note of here is that Linux runs on older computers that can no longer run the latest versions of Windows, and yes, Linux even runs on many of Apple's Macintosh computers. You'll find a number of videos online that walk you through the simple process of installing Linux on a Mac. So you've got an iMac, a MacBook, MacBook Pro, what have you. There's even a Linux distribution out there right now that runs on the newest Mac computers with Apple's new M1 processor. And you'll find some videos online as well for that. All right, let's keep moving forward. Embedded devices. So these are the types of devices that you'll find in places like manufacturing and the energy business. Android phones. So if you've got a Samsung phone, a Google Pixel, any number of Android devices, that is a Linux operating system running under the hood. I also list several other vendors on my website, forthetechofit.net, who sell computers and support those computers with Linux already pre-installed. And finally, even the Ingenuity helicopter that's flying over the surface of Mars is running a version of Linux. And yes, Linux made it to the red planet. So if you're wondering what type of computer is needed to run Linux, there's your list. Okay, on to the next one. Mistaken assumption number 4. There's no support for Linux and the open source software you use with it. Now, I got a question for a lot of those folks. When was the last time they called Microsoft, the Microsoft Help Desk, for support for any of their software? I can't think of the last time when I was using Windows for personal use. I use it for work, of course, but that's because my employer requires it. But I don't remember the last time I called Microsoft for any support, and I seriously doubt any of the folks who make this particular mistaken assumption have contacted Microsoft for support either. All right, so that aside, first off, I think it's pretty safe to argue that Linux has every bit as much of, if not more, resources online to help you find answers to problems as does macOS and Windows. So if we look at the Zorin website here, for example, not only do they have a well-defined help center, and that's where we are here, how can we help you? But there's even a Facebook group for Zorin OS. And if you purchase the $39 Pro Edition of Zorin OS, which is what I'm running here, you can get technical support from their engineers. Oh, and unlike Windows, with Windows 11, Zorin offers 3 different editions. So as I mentioned a moment ago, you've got the Professional Edition, which is $39 US. And you have the Zorin OS 16 Core and the Zorin OS 16 Lite Edition. These are absolutely free. You don't pay a penny for these. And the beauty of all 3 is that even if you get the Pro Edition, you pay the $39 once and you can install it on as many computers as you want. Same as with these guys. They're free, so you're free to install and use them on as many computers as you want. So keep that in mind. It's with Windows 11, you have to have a separate license for every computer you plan to use it with. That's one of the beauties of free and open source software. You don't have to deal with that. So keep that in mind. It's a pretty important distinction. So no, with respect to the support, any of the software, let's go to the LibreOffice website and use that as an example. This is a very common open source application. It's an office suite that ships with Linux. It's actually included with Zorin here, right? If you go to Office, here's LibreOffice, as well as some of the other software that ships with Zorin. If you want support, you got some options. You can use their online forums if you want, or if you want to do paid support, there are companies here. I think if we go to Get Help, professional support, if you want to do paid support, let's say you have your own business or something and you want to get paid support, there are companies here who will sell you a support package for LibreOffice. Let's go to Ubuntu's website. If you really want to have paid support or support for your operating system, just accept all. We go to Enterprise. Here with Ubuntu, here are the support services. You want to get support. Buy online. So free for personal use, depending on here it is. Anyone can use the Ubuntu Essentials for free for up to 3 machines, or 50 if you're an official Ubuntu community member, right? So Ubuntu, as an example, offers paid support plans if you want support for your OS. They're not the only ones. There's, I think Red Hat is another. There's another Linux. I won't go too deep into these, but there are options where you can get support for Linux operating systems. I think another one is called TuxCare. I think it's .com. Let's see. Yes. So TuxCare, you can actually pay these guys to support different Linux distributions, right? So they offer various options here that you can choose from. So keep that in mind. Linux has support options available to you, both free as well as paid support. And we finally arrive at mistaken assumption number 5. Linux won't run all of my Windows software. Now, I'll try to keep this as simple as possible. Linux is not Windows. There is software that will work with Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. It's called cross-platform software. LibreOffice, which I brought you to their website a few moments ago, is one example of that. You will find an install of LibreOffice available in the Microsoft Store, and LibreOffice is actually included with most Linux distributions by default. Now keep in mind, the one in the Microsoft Store is a paid version. If you don't want to go with a paid version of free and open source software, in this case LibreOffice, and I'll go to their website, all you have to do on your Windows PC, go to LibreOffice.org, click Download Now, choose the version you want to download, choose Windows 64-bit, download it and install it for free on your computer. That's all you have to do. VLC, Media Player, is another example. And there are several others that are cross-platform that run on Windows, Mac, and on Linux. Now, if you're considering moving to a Mac, you wouldn't expect a Mac to natively run all Windows software, because it doesn't. The same is true the other way around. If you're on a Mac and you want to use a Windows PC, and you want that Windows PC to run something like Apple's Final Cut, then get ready to be disappointed, because it ain't happening, folks. Final Cut is not designed to run on a Windows PC. Final Cut is not designed to run on a Linux-based PC. It's designed for Mac OS. Now, having said all of that, there are some ways to run some Windows software on Linux. It generally requires third-party software to do so. But again, it's not a 100% guarantee, nor should it be. Now, I'm not going to go into detail with all this because it's really out of scope for this episode. However, I think probably the best example that you'll find with respect to Windows compatibility is when it comes to games. Now, I'm not too big into gaming any longer the way I used to be years back, but companies like Valve Software have done a superb job at getting quite a large quantity of Windows-based Steam games to run on Linux, and that list continues to grow. In fact, there's an entire community, I think, on Facebook and definitely on YouTube and on Twitch that you can go check out, and you'll see they've got Steam games running on Linux just fine. Now, this is the Steam client, the Steam app, inside of the Zorin Software Center. So you can install this client on your Linux-based computer, in this case Zorin, and you can play Steam games. Same games that Windows users have. You can play most of those on your Linux PC. So if that piques your interest, then you definitely want to check this out. It's right here in the Zorin Software Center. All I did was clicked on search, typed the word Steam, click the Steam link, and all you have to do is install it. So before we wrap up, I just want to compare some of the various ways to navigate the user interfaces between Zorin OS and Windows 11. So here we are in Windows 11. It's got the new modern Windows 11 look and feel. Got your taskbar down here. Got your Windows Start button. You can see Microsoft has changed the Start menu a bit. If you want to look at all apps, you click all apps, you scroll through, launch whatever you want. Let's say calculator, right? Application starts up. You can place icons on the desktop as you see here. So I've got Microsoft Edge. Plus you can, I think you can add shortcut. In fact, let me go back to the calculator. We'll open that up. And if you want the calculator to remain here on the taskbar, it's as simple as right-clicking and pin to taskbar. Right? Simple enough, right? Okay, let's go into Zorin OS. Now in Zorin, again, you got a nice taskbar here. The menu looks a little bit different, but we can change that if we want to. Remember, this is running Zorin OS Professional Edition. So I'm going to go to Zorin Appearance. I want this to look a little bit more like Windows 11. So as you can see, Zorin offers, the Professional Edition offers 8 different views. Let's click on this one. Notice what just happened. I'm going to close out of this. Now we've got something very similar, go back to Windows, to what we see here in Windows 11. We click on the Zorin menu. Here you have a list of the applications that are installed and included with Zorin. Now I've added a few others, but most of these are included with Zorin. You want to, let's say the calculator. Click here. Calculator. This is the Zorin calculator. I want to pin that to my panel down here. I'll just say add to favorites. Close that. Go here. And there it is. So navigation, as you can see, Zorin's very customizable, just as Windows is. You've got a dark mode, you've got light mode, just with Windows 11. The difference between Zorin and Windows 11, in Windows 11, if you don't activate it with a license, you don't get to toggle over to dark mode. So with Zorin, if we go to Zorin Appearance, and I go to Themes, if I click here, it switches to dark mode. Now you can do this with Windows 11, but you have to activate it first with a license. You don't need that with Zorin. Go back to light mode. Windows 11. Here's the file manager. Looks good. It's got, it's pretty similar to what we have with Windows 10, right? You've got your different quick access options here for different folders, pictures, music, video. Let's go over to Zorin. We'll open up its file manager. All right, so here's the Zorin file manager. What's really good about these file managers here, at least on the Linux side, unlike with Windows 11, if I were to press Control-T, look at what happened. I've actually got tabs. Home folder, Documents folder. I can create tabs in my File Explorer. Let's go to Windows. There's no way to create tabs. So we want to go into the desktop. Is there a tab here? No tab there. There's no way to create tabs. Let's go back to Zorin. Let's see here. What are some other nice things? Oh, yes. So I don't think I have any files, but I'll create one. Let's say a new document, text file. I'll rename it. Double click on it. I'll just put something here. We'll save that. I'll flag it as starred. And it appears here, this is kind of like a favorites folder. I think you can do the same thing with Windows 11, if I'm not mistaken. Let me create a file here, new text document. Open that up in Notepad. Close it and save it. I think you can do that. Let's see. They've changed so many things here in Windows 11. You can share. I don't know that you can. If you all know of a way to create favorites, that's not here, in the Windows 11 File Explorer, definitely, here we go, pin to quick access. All right. Where did it go? Did it pin it? Yeah, there it is. No, that's recent files. I thought it would pin it over here, but I don't see it. Maybe this is where it places it. Can I unpin it? I don't see it. Interesting. Okay. If you guys know a way to do that in Windows 11, go ahead and put that in the in the chat. But I just wanted to show you some basic navigation. By default, Zorin ships with the Firefox web browser. It's a very good browser. I use it all the time. Windows, of course, has Microsoft Edge. Now, there is, I think, a version of Edge available for Linux that you can install if you want to go that route. But Firefox is certainly not the only browser. You can get Firefox for Windows even. It may even be in the Microsoft Store. Let's go see. I'm going to type Firefox. Yeah, here it is. So you can install the Firefox browser in Windows if you want to go with Firefox. So you have options. But I just wanted to go through some of the basic navigation capabilities between these two different operating systems. And really the purpose is to show you that Linux isn't all that difficult to use, right? It's highly customizable. As you saw, I just customized this. In fact, if we go back to Zorin Appearance, I can choose more of the traditional Windows XP, Windows 7 type of look. If I open up Calculator, you see a little button here appears, and we can toggle back and forth between that. There are just different views here. We can go with more of the GNOME view, right? This actually looks more like what you would see on a Mac. So you can launch your applications this way. This is more the traditional GNOME view. Right? Where you have the dock on the sidebar here and a separate application button. This is a little bit more like the Mac, where you've got a dock at the bottom and you've got more of a standard type menu at the top. This was the view I showed you a moment ago. This is more of the Ubuntu style Unity view, where this dock is fixed on the side, but you still get the application button. You can scroll through. And of course, you have this more condensed menu view. Try doing any of this with Windows, folks. You can forget about it. I don't even know if Windows 11 lets you move the taskbar to different parts of the screen anymore, right? So if we want to position it to the top, move it to the top like this, left side, right side, or bottom. You used to be able to do it with Windows. You can still do it with Windows 10, but I don't even know if that feature's available in Windows 11. I've read that I think they're bringing it back. I'm not sure why they ever took it away. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Please click that subscribe button. This will help me to really focus in on bringing more content. And definitely pass the word. And I will see you later. Peace.